A very good evening and a warm welcome to another brand new week of our newscast. I'm Salima Shimoifelini Masipa. Politics headline the segment. With the Swakopmund constituency by-election slated for this weekend, political parties have thrown down the gauntlet and will be contesting for the vacant constituency seat via their candidates. Meanwhile, Popular Democratic Movement PDM leader McHenry Venani says the PDM is the only political party in Namibia with the political maturity and emotional intelligence to handle power. Isabel Bento, our coastal-based correspondent, filed our lead story.
We are having a by-election because the one opposition party won, and they fired their leader. They fired that leader because they cannot manage power. And I dare say it, out of all these parties, none of them have the emotional intelligence to handle political power. Parties are fighting one another over power. There is no development. People have given mandates to political party. Instead of leading, people are fighting one another. It tells you that we don't have political maturity in dealing with power. When somebody disagrees with the president, that person must be fired. That is not leadership. If you want to govern a country, your ego cannot be bigger than the country. Your ego cannot be bigger than the institution. The institution must always be bigger. So colleagues, we are the only opposition party in this country that has the political maturity, that has the political emotional intelligence to handle power.
Staying with politics, SWAPO Party Vice President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah has assured the party's readiness to deliver the much-needed services to the people of Swakopmund and the Erongo region at large.
And Comrade Solomon Ndara Nehemia has all that takes and has all the necessary skill and necessary leadership that they will end the stagnation that this constituency and the town has suffered since a serious mistake was made. A serious mistake was made. Swakopmund and the Erongo are very important areas in this country. Namibia has been investing a lot on issues of international economic cooperation through our economic diplomacy. Subsequently, we have now had what we call Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is calling for trade between African countries. And the Swakopmund is an area that is going to be a gateway to trade. The first consignment of meat that went to Ghana, it went through which port? It went through which port? Which is here in Erongo, which is faced by Swakopmund. We should not allow our trade cooperation to be controlled by those who don't know where we have started. And that is why we must make sure that Erongo is under SWAPO.
Moving on, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in South Africa on Sunday, kicking off a three-nation African visit as Washington scales up diplomacy to counter Russian influence on the continent. Lydia Pitiri reports.
His visit comes after an extensive tour of Africa by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov late last month. South Africa, a leader in the developing world, has remained neutral in the Ukraine war, refusing to join Western calls to condemn Russia, which had opposed apartheid before the end of white minority rule in 1994. Pretoria, in a statement, said Blinken will hold talks with South African counterpart Naledi Pandor and also make a policy announcement on the US government's New Africa strategy. It said the two will discuss ongoing and recent developments relating to global geopolitical situation. The US State Department last month said African countries were geostrategic players and critical players on the most pressing issues of this day, from promoting open and stable international system to tackling the efforts of climate change, food insecurity, and global pandemics. The African powerhouse, which held great diplomatic influence beyond the continent, belongs to a group of emerging economies called BRICS. In June, Russian President Vladimir Putin asked BRIC countries Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa to cooperate in the face of selfish actions from the West. For Fantia Akum, head of the Pretoria-based think tank Institute for Security Studies, Blinken's visit will help the US understand the Southern African country's position.
On to news from further afield. British museum chiefs have agreed to return ownership of a looted collection of treasured artifacts to Nigeria, including its Benin bronzes, because it is the moral and appropriate thing to do. Michael Madimba gives us this report.
The Horniman Museum said ownership of the 72 objects, which were looted in 1897 and include 12 brass plates known as Benin bronzes, are to be transferred to the Nigerian government. Eve Solomon, chairwoman of the trustees of the Horniman Museum and Gardens in Forest Hill, South East London, said, "The evidence is very clear that these objects were acquired through force, and external consultation supported their view that it is both moral and appropriate to return their ownership to Nigeria. A brass cockerel altarpiece, ivory, and brass ceremonial objects, brass bells, everyday items such as fans and baskets, and a key to the King's Palace are among the items. The items were taken from Benin City by British troops in February 1897. In January, Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments requested the items to be returned."
When we return, tons of South African fruit stranded in Europe. Welcome to the Primetime Business segment, where business and economics take center stage. Leading the segment, millions of boxes of oranges are spoiling in containers stranded at European ports as South Africa and the European Union lock horns in a dispute over import rules. Michael Madimba sheds more context.
The world's second largest exporter of fresh citrus after Spain, South Africa, filed a complaint with the World Trade Organization last month after the EU introduced new plant and health safety requirements that orange farmers say threaten their survival. South Africa's Citrus Growers Association noted the measures came into force in July as ships were already at sea carrying hundreds of containers full of South African fruit to Europe, resulting in them being held up on arrival. It's a complete and utter disaster, Citrus Growers Association CEO Justin Chadwick told AFP by phone. He added that food that has fantastic quality and is safe is just sitting there, and this at a time when people are worried about food security. The EU rules aim at tackling the potential spread of an insect called the false Scotland moth, a pest native to sub-Saharan Africa that feeds on fruits including oranges and grapefruits. The new measures require South African farmers to apply extreme cold treatment to all Europe-bound oranges and keep the fruits at temperatures of 2 degrees Celsius or lower for 25 days. But the Citrus Growers Association says this measure is unnecessary, as the country already has its own, more targeted way of preventing infestation. The EU said it was confident of the World Trade Organization compatibility of its measures. A spokesperson for the EU Commission said in a statement, the objective of the EU's plant and health safety criteria is to protect the Union territory from the potential significant impact on the agriculture and the environment should this pest establish itself in the Union.
Moving on. Germany's Siemens Energy announced a larger loss for the third quarter, citing a decline at Spanish-German wind engineering company Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy.
Siemens Energy said its third quarter net loss attributable to shareholders had widened to 390 million euros from 230 million euros in the prior year. Revenue of 7.3 billion euros was down by 4.7% on the comparable basis, as growth at gas and power segment was more than offset by a decline in Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy. The company today said Siemens Energy's net loss in fiscal year 2022 is expected to exceed the prior year's net loss due to the impact of the restructuring of business in Russia's reported a special item.
That's all the top news we had for you this evening. Kindly stay tuned for Sport Planet, but first the economics roundup, followed by the weather forecast.
Good evening and welcome to Sport Planet. I'm Joy Gosses. We begin with football. African superstars and former Liverpool teammates Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane scored at the weekend as new league seasons dawned in Europe. Egyptian Salah scored on the opening day of the Premier League for a 6th straight season to salvage a 2-all draw for Liverpool at Fulham. Senegalese Mane, who left Anfield for Bayern Munich during the close season, netted as the reigning German champions ran riot at Eintracht Frankfurt to triumph 6-1 in the Bundesliga. On to some rugby. New Zealand are waiting on the fitness of brothers Beauden and Jody Barrett ahead of the All Blacks' decisive second test away to South Africa this Saturday. New Zealand lost their opening match of the Rugby Championship 26-10 to South Africa in Mbombela last Saturday, as the All Blacks suffered their heaviest defeat to the Springboks since 1928. The heavy defeat on the road ramped up the pressure on New Zealand's head coach Ian Foster and captain Sam Cane, as the team has now lost 5 of their last 6 games. Ahead of Saturday's second and final test against South Africa in Johannesburg, All Blacks playmaker Beauden Barrett is nursing a neck injury, while goal kicker Jody has an ankle knock. Stand by for your sports roundup. With the sports news, we have come to the end of this week's first edition of Primetime News. Many thanks for watching. If you are new to this channel, do subscribe, like, share, and press the notifications bell to stay posted on the latest happenings locally and globally. Catch us tomorrow for another edition of Primetime News. From myself, Joy Gosses, and the entire production crew, it's good night.